Right.
Gilbert, this is Gilbert Ferguson, and Gilbert Ferguson is an icon in our church for a number of reasons. One of which is that he's been around here longer than anybody else I know. When you count both the time at Laurel Street and the time at St. Andrews, there are not many people who remember the history of Laurel Street the way you do, Gilbert. And so I want to talk to you a few minutes tonight about Laurel Street Church, and then after we finish talking about, and we'll never finish really talking about Laurel Street, but as we move on from that, then we'll talk about the beginnings of St. Andrews and how St. Andrews has developed in those years since about 1968. Gilbert, what is your very first memory of Laurel Street Methodist Church?
Very first memory, we were new in the neighborhood, and I was a lad of about 14 and a half years old. My family moved in, and of course my mother, God bless her, was a great Methodist. So that one of the first things she started looking for was a Methodist church in the area. So down in 401 South Laurel was a good old Methodist church. So she hauled the Ferguson family around there after she got settled a little bit. And I remember quite well that church. I remember going into the basement, and some of the things that really impressed me in that basement was we fuss now in churches because we don't have a lot of things to work with. We need this and we need that. Well, we had a basement down there, and we must have had 10 Sunday school classes in it, and everybody got his lesson in every Sunday. Everybody took care of his particular class. And one of the classes that they had down there that really impressed me was, they called it the number 11 Bible class. Every man in that Bible class was a Mason, and they met in the basement along with the others. So my first day down there, I saw a lot, and some of those things maybe I saw a little bit later, but I remember going in that, when you went off of Laurel Street, you went on down 4 or 5 steps and you went into the basement. And I really did, it impressed me, the whole thing did. And like I said, my mother raised me a Methodist. I was more concerned about that than I was anything else.
You were in high school then, weren't you, when you moved into Oregon Hill?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to high school?
I started down to John Marshall High School, or that was everybody's intent. But we had a depression going, and my life could change completely when things in my home nobody had work. Anybody they could go over and get work. So then I had to go get my education under the stars.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time, and I was still being educated when I left the Continental Baking Company 50 years later.
So you got a lot of your education at the Continental Baking Company.
I sure did, and I got some good education there.
And that was close enough to walk too, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they brought in people down there every so often that gave you 3 months of, they brought in college professors, and they would teach you things that would be related to the business. And it really did help me in many areas.
Now, did you meet your wife at Laurel Street?
No, I worked in the grocery store at West End Grocery Company, located at Laurel and Curry. And there was a lady, one of our customers that lived about a half a block away, that was an alumnus of William and Mary. And she taught some classes down at the YWCA. And for some reason or another, she took a liking to me in the grocery store. And she said, "Gilbert, I've got just a girl for you." And so she kept telling her that. So finally, one day she came in and on a Thursday. She says, "Tomorrow she's coming over to class," and says, "I'm going to bring her up here and we're going to have lunch. And I'm going to bring her up here to meet you." And fellas, you can definitely fall in love with a girl. It don't have to be 6 months. It can be very quick. And she was absolutely a sweetheart.
Love at first sight with Jesse, huh?
Just about.
What year were y'all married?
1936.
Were you married in Laurel Street Church?
I was married at 2215 Maplewood Avenue, the parsonage of Laurel Street Methodist Church, which made me extremely happy. And some of my family was there, some of hers too. And Dr. Robinson was, he was the minister, and he was the one who performed the marriage.
Tell me about some of the years as you and Jesse were married and as you started your family, and tell me about how you were related to Laurel Street Church in those days.
Very closely. I married this wonderful girl that I just mentioned to you earlier on a Monday, and the following Sunday when I told her, I said, "You been going to Burman, and I don't take people away from the churches, and if you want to continue to go to Burman, that's fine." And she said, "Well, I'd like to go around and try Laurel Street, your church." And so the first Sunday we were married, she went there, and the people there was the most congenial people. You went in that place, you'd have a little problem getting out because everybody was going to stop you. I mean, they were so glad to see you. I mean, they were very loving and kind and welcoming people. And so they just loved my girl. And we had a lady back in the primary department that had been back there already for many years, who was running it by the name of Rosa Gasser. And she gave her a job the very first Sunday that she joined Laurel Street Church. And the second Sunday she was there, she was back into the primary department. And she stayed in that primary department until that church burned down on January the 15th, 1968. That's how long my Jessie was in that primary department. She and Rosa Gasser, one spent 30-some years and the other one 47. And I had a sister that spent 25 back there, incidentally, also. So that we were tied in very closely with the church.
What ministers do you remember during those years?
Well, I remember Dr. Robinson. I remember some of them you do want to remember, some of you don't.
What are you trying to tell me, Gilbert?
Oh, boy. No, all of them were really good. I thought Dr. Robinson, who married us, was one of our favorites. And he made many accomplishments while he was there. And we had many others there. But the one that came to us when we was in such dying straits was in 1949, when we were trying to get on our feet to have that 100th anniversary, and we had no minister. And we got Raleigh Mann in August of 1949, and he, as I said, he was like a gift from above for all of us, and everybody loved him. And when you saw him and he had that smile, he just looked at you and he smiled at you, and he just stole your heart. He was that kind of a person. And he loved people, and naturally he was always knocking on your door. He was just really a wonderful pastor. He really was.
The anniversary, tell me about, that was a centennial anniversary in 1949. I know it was really a year-long celebration, wasn't it?
Well, not really. We, as I said earlier, we didn't have a minister, and we were trying to get things going. And I had gotten there that Sunday morning. My good wife, my son, who was a little 6-year-old boy at that time, and they were back in the primary department, and I was sitting there on one of those chicken benches, and a lady came in, one of our long time members, and she brought a visitor. And as she got inside, she stood there for a little bit, and she's telling this lady, her friend, how much she really loved this place, and about her mother and father going there, and now she was going, and her children, 3 generations of the Witt families was coming to that church. This was Elsie Witt. Her name, married name was Elsie Fincham. And Elsie is standing at that door, I can see her now, telling that lady how much this church meant to her. Then she changed, and she all of a sudden, she said, I want to apologize as the way it looks. She said, I'm really sorry that it looks so bad. Fellows, the good Lord put something in my mind that I was sitting on that deacon's bench. And I heard every word that that good lady said. And I remembered all of the covenants that the good Lord had made in that Old Testament on many of them to the people. And I said, I'm going to make one too. And I said, if you will give me the support of these people, we will change this place. And fellows, one of the greatest years of my life, without question, happened in 1949. A board met the following week, and I presented the program, and they said, Gilbert, what's wrong with you? You're just out of this world. We don't have any money. What you want to do is fine. But, we're just not in position to do it. And I said, well, we'll make some money. We'll get it done. If I get people to get free labor, I know we can get enough money to buy the materials. And I kept begging and begging. And finally, again, a man who just loved me from the time I was that 15-year-old boy when I joined the church out at Parish. He says, and now board chairman was Brother H.E. Reese. I'm sure you remember him. And he said, Brother Reese, I'll make a motion that let's give the man a chance. Let's see what happens. What does he want to do? Let him see what he can do in the basement. And I said, I wouldn't do it anyway unless Brother Parrish was working with me. He's the superintendent of the building. And if you give me permission, he is part of it. Because he knows building and I don't. I'll furnish the people in the material and get know-how. I don't have the know-how either. I'm just an old dumb boy I want to make changes, church around if I can. And so they finally said, well, let's give him an opportunity. So they did, and I put on suppers, and the suppers would make a little money. But anyway, we got started, and I went around to see, I want to give some good old Law Street people credit. I went around to Doris Epps' home to see her husband, Johnny Epps, who was a foreman for a painting contractor. I was trying to find out where I could get this free labor. So I went round there to see Johnny Epps, and he wasn't home, so I told Doris about it. And she said, I'll get him to call. So he called, and he said, okay, I'll see what I can find out tomorrow, and I'll call you, Gilbert. So he called, and he said, I can get them this evening and tomorrow evening, but you got to feed them. I said, that's okay. My mother and father, my good wife and my mother will feed them. And I said, how many of it? He says, be 7. I said, good. So I went around to Garden Harvest, who was a long-time friend of mine that ran Harvey Hardware. And I told him my story about my church. And we were trying to do something about it, and we didn't have any money. And he said, don't worry about your money. What you need. So I said, I'll see that you get the money. So I told him about the paint and so forth. And I went across the street and got my friend over at Charlie Jenkins' who was a maintenance man for C&P Telephone, and a good one. And I said, I want you to be my chief advisor. I want you to be my superintendent. You tell me what you want. I'll just furnish the game, furnish the people and the materials, because you know how to do it. And he looked at me with that nice slow grin he had. He said, you sure you want me to do that, Gilbert? I said, I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And he said, okay. And so he did, and he was just fabulous. Well, that we got started that day, and they fixed the walls up and put a ground coat on it. They got fed. The next day they came back. They got fed. They put the finishing coat on it, and that basement was really shaking up. And then I get this call from another one of my buddies down there by the name of Bernard Bass. And he worked for Northside Electric. He said, Gilbert, I'm working down here on Main Street, and my company is putting in some new light fixtures, and they're trading in these old ones, and he said they look like brand new, and it would be beautiful in that church up there. And I can get them for $100. You want me to get them? I said, I don't have any money, Bernard. I got to make money. He said, well, my boss said, don't worry about your money. You want to buy them, he knows the church will pay him sometime or another. I said, well, who's going to put them in? He said, I'm going to get my buddy and we're going to put them in. Well, fellas, in about 3 weeks, we had a pretty place there. But everything we go to do would backfire, and they went to move the podium, and that fell in, and then I could just go on and on. But anyway, we wound up with a new cement floor, with tile on it, with the primary department done over, with the beginner's department done over, all in this basement. And that was the beginning of us making preparations for this 100th anniversary. And there was other men and ladies that were working real hard. Everybody was working hard at Law Street. That's the thing, everybody.